This is the Amazing Teacher Podcast with Sam Ringel, episode number 4.
Welcome to the Amazing Teacher Podcast, where we sit down with amazing teachers and pick their brains for tips, strategies, and ideas that you can take into your classrooms and be amazing. Now, here's your host, Sam Ringel.
Welcome, amazing teachers, to the 4th episode of the Amazing Teacher Podcast. This is Sam from successintheclassroom.com, and if you didn't already figure it out, that was my 5-year-old daughter, Rochelle, who was introducing the podcast. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so sometimes I'll record my intros several times before I find the one I like. Well, the last time my daughter was with me, and I guess she heard me repeating the intro over and over again, and later on she was repeating it as well. So I don't know about you, but I thought that was pretty adorable. So I thought I'd have her open up this podcast. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time out to listen to the podcast. I am really enjoying sitting down with amazing teachers and just talking about this wonderful profession that we're in. And this week I'm sitting down with Danielle Mizuta. She is the state lead mentor with the Hawaii Department of Education Teacher Leadership Institute. She works with beginning teachers on analyzing student work, setting professional goals, coaching, observations, and anything else the teacher needs. Her main goal is to support the teachers in their first years in the profession so that they can become effective educators sooner than later. And this is why I thought she'd be a perfect guest for the podcast. Danielle has some great advice for new teachers. Listen for when she shares about the importance of being open to adjust their teaching style. That's big. Also, listen for what Danielle says about the 3 P's that identify amazing teachers. That's cool too. And she also shares about the power of Pinterest. Yeah, Pinterest. I thought this was just a place to pin pictures on a board, but Danielle showed me that Pinterest is actually a search engine that new teachers can use to get ideas for class activities and tips for classroom management and more. I thought that was pretty cool. So I didn't even know that Pinterest could do all that. So listen for that. All right, so let's jump right into the interview. Here is Danielle Mizuta. Ready? Here we go. Today, I am so happy to have Danielle Mizuta, who is the state lead mentor of the Hawaii Department of Education Leadership Institute. Welcome to the show, Danielle.
Thank you, Sam. I'm happy to be here.
I want to thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to sit down with me and let me pick your brain. I believe this interview is going to offer some great insights to new teachers because of your unique perspective. So I'm really excited about this interview.
Great.
Well, before we begin, Danielle, can you tell us a little bit about the Teacher Leadership Institute and what you do there?
Sure. Okay, so the Hawaii Department of Education is a Teacher Leadership Institute, and we work with beginning teachers. We define our beginning teachers here in the state of Hawaii as teachers who are in their 1st to 3rd year of the actual teaching profession. And some of the mandates that we have in Hawaii is that all beginning teachers who are in their 1st, 2nd, or 3rd year of the teaching profession are matched up with a trained instructional mentor. And I'm sure you know the statistics about how beginning teachers, many of them, like over half of them, leave the profession within 5 years of teaching. And so one of our goals is really to provide the support that the unique needs of beginning teachers that they have, as well as to really work with them in a trained instructional mentoring manner so that they become effective teachers sooner than later, which in turn is always going to be affecting our final and ultimate goal of increasing student achievement.
Right.
Yeah, so we have different mentoring models. We have our state is unique in the sense that it's one school district, and as you may know, our state consists of 8 different islands. But we're broken up into 15 complex areas, which is kind of similar to how many states are broken up into school districts. So we have 15 complex areas, and each of them run their induction and mentoring programs kind of according to the needs of their geographic areas. So some of them have full release mentors who are like resource teachers who their full-time job is to go and mentor beginning teachers in their area. We also have school level mentors where we have teachers who still have their own classroom, but they've also taken on the leadership position of being a trained instructional mentor and will mentor one beginning teacher at their school. And then we have other positions, maybe curriculum coordinators or department heads, who also are able to mentor beginning teachers as well.
And what do you do there specifically?
So my position is a little bit different because I'm at the state level. So I mentor a small group of beginning teachers, but I also provide training. So I train school level mentors all over the state. I'm a trained instructional mentor, so I go out and I train up mentors. And we also support the complex areas in Hawaii. So we're based in Honolulu, but I travel over to Kauai and Hawaii, which is the Big Island on the west side of Hawaii, to work with them on mentor forums, beginning teacher PLCs, and I work with all of the induction coordinators in each complex area to help build their program. And then anything else our bosses need us to do as the day goes on. Yeah.
Right. So you see a lot of new teachers in the classroom.
We do. Our state has about 1,500 beginning teachers every year that they hire. And so every complex area has, a good number of beginning teachers that need support. My background is in special education, so I focus on beginning teachers in special education. There's no shortage of beginning special educators here in Hawaii. And then we also have, the school level and full release mentors who are actually in the classrooms with the beginning teachers. So they meet with all the beginning teachers 1 to 2 hours a week on a very ongoing basis. And the difference with an instructional mentor, I think mentoring, comes around a lot in terms of, vocabulary. And I think what makes us unique is that we are trained instructional mentors. So as important as it is to have that buddy teacher next door who can kind of show you the ropes and explain what you need to know at the school level about how your kids should be lining up for lunch and where you're supposed to go for your fire drill, trained instructional mentors work with beginning teachers on advancing their profession. So once a week, we're working with them on basically whatever support they need, but we also are very focused on analyzing student work. We work with them on setting professional goals and creating a growth plan. We do coaching and observation. We use formative assessment tools every week that we visit with them in their classroom. So that's what we do. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So, before we begin with the some of the tips and strategies that you have to offer, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? How did you get into teaching, and maybe why did you get into teaching in the first place?
All right. Well, like we talked before, I went to the university. I went to Cal Poly Pomona in California, and I was a resident advisor in the dorms there. I was doing that to help pay my tuition. It was paying my room and board. And it was the first year that the AmeriCorps program started, and they had reached out to us and presented this AmeriCorps program. And I signed up because there was some scholarship money attached that could help pay for college. And I got paired up in the Pomona Unified School District, and I was also working at the California Youth Authority. So part of my service was we had to do about 9 to 10 hours of service a week. And I worked at the Youth Authority where we tried to plan some connecting activities with the kids, where we'd barbecues when their families came to visit. And then I also was in the Pomona Unified School District where I was working with some at-risk youth. I went in and tutored some classes with students with some challenges, and I even taught an after-school dance program. And I ended up spending some time in like an alternative learning center where there were a lot of, kids who just weren't fitting the mold in the regular high school setting. So I ended up spending a lot of time there, doing a lot of my service working with those kids, and just realizing that they weren't so much different than me in the sense that, I wasn't the best student in school, and I always wasn't just the most eager learner, and some things just weren't interesting to me. And being able to work with them in a way that I found really kind of hooked them or got them interested in learning was kind of really what gave me the bug to teaching. And with that AmeriCorps scholarship money, I was able to come back to, when I finished college, I moved back home to Hawaii, continued with the service learning program at UH, and I was able to pay for grad school and able to get 2 master's degrees. So one in educational foundations and one in special education. And that's where I really kind of found my calling, working with those kids who just didn't really fit the mold, who really just needed someone to kind of understand them, someone to kind of present instruction or present content in a different way that might be a little more interesting or engaging. And yeah, so that's what I did. I started working at a residential treatment facility here before I was certified, working with, again, at-risk youth. It was a boys program. They were coming in and out of detention home and in and out of the youth correctional facility, and really understanding that they were really bright students. They just needed the right teacher. And I think that's what really, really, really got me motivated. I specifically remember a situation where a kid was trying to figure out how to calculate change and different ways of creating combinations of money, I think. And we're just looking at this worksheet and it's just all text and it's saying, 2 different ways to do this. And I just sat there and thought, what's another way that we can make this meaningful and relevant to him, and just kind of engage in a conversation about why money is important. What do you need to know about it? You don't want people taking advantage of you, and really putting it in a way that made it meaningful to him, and then finding other ways to kind of get those combinations, as to why it would be something that would be important or significant to him. And then again, I got into the classroom in the Department of Education in the public school system, and because I really did understand those kids with those behavioral needs, then I really got them in my classroom. They ended up coming to my classroom very often because, I was the only one who, quote, could understand them or handle them. And I always thought that was really funny because it was really just about getting to know those kids and understanding, what made them tick and what really resonates with them, and how I can adjust my teaching to make them want to learn and have them be encouraged and interested.
I think you mentioned something very important there, where you adjust your teaching, not necessarily them adjusting their learning to make that class successful.
Right. And I think that's so important. I think, especially for beginning teachers, to remember that you have a certain learning style. You went through school being taught a certain way. There's multiple intelligences, there's audio visual learners, there's all different kinds of ways to consider what kind of learning style we have, and to really remember that you learn best in one style and that may be the way that you end up teaching. And when that certain group of students isn't, quote, getting it, or you don't understand why they don't understand a concept, it's really important to kind of do that self-reflection and really think about, is it because of my delivery and because it's not matching up with their learning style? And how can I then design the lessons, around the needs of my students as opposed to the way that I feel they should be receiving the information? And that's, I
think that's great advice right there. I mean, if there anything teachers can take away from this interview is that right there. Be open to modify your own way of teaching.
Yes.
I think it's awesome right there. So, like I said, the purpose of the podcast is to sit down with amazing teachers like yourself and just pick their brains for tips and strategies that new teachers can take into the classroom and be amazing. So I know in your experience, you've run across several amazing teachers. What are some qualities that you have noticed are common in these amazing teachers?
Okay. So I thought about this because I was really, I really can really identify with the amazing teachers that I think of. When you ask me who's an amazing teacher, I can easily identify the ones that I know I think are really amazing and the ones that I wouldn't put into that category. So when I really think about what qualities those amazing teachers have, the first one is that they have a relationship with their students and they really, honestly, genuinely care about them. These teachers are really getting, they're taking the time to understand their students, know where they're coming from. I mean, understanding if they have divorced parents and some days they're walking to school and other days it's taking them an hour and they're coming in with a parent who woke up late, so it's really not their fault that they're late, things like that. Because they care and because they have that relationship with their students, they don't react to their behaviors. They really take time to understand and really figure out what it is that's going on with that student before they make a judgment call or a snap decision about that. And I think that is just, it's amazing because it immediately cuts back on over half of your classroom management issues. It eliminates that power struggle that teachers so often have, not only new teachers, but veteran teachers as well.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And it's not only negative, but they care about them to the point where they can share in celebrations and they can share in the successes of the students. And I think the students and the teachers then genuinely thrive. Another quality I think amazing teachers have is that they follow through. And they're reliable. They have rituals and routines set up. They have reasonable consequences, both positive and negative, things that they can actually follow through with. I kind of relate it to parenting. You know, it's you're so frustrated with a class that you threaten to keep them all after school for 30 minutes. That's
right.
Not an enforceable consequence. Also, you know, putting them all on a plane and taking them to Disney World if they, you know, pass the state assessment. That's also not an appropriate positive consequence. So they're very reliable. They're very consistent. You know, they also can have some basic rules in place that, you know, are pretty fair for every student, but they can handle each student differently, you know, according to the situation. So all the way from I'm going to call your parent to clear this up. You know, the amazing teachers will actually call the parent within a reasonable time, as opposed to those empty threats. I think that's another thing that makes teachers amazing. And then finally, I think about those 3 Ps. So I think amazing teachers are professional, passionate, and they persevere. They, regardless of what setting they're in, are always professional, no matter how challenging it can be. They can be in a difficult staff meeting. They can be with a very difficult parent who is, you know, making threats and calling the union and the superintendent. They can be in the teacher's lounge where there's some really inappropriate, you know, comments going on, or there's just some negative speak about students or their peers. Amazing teachers always stay professional. You know, you can always... I never have known an amazing teacher to be unprofessional. I think that's one of the things that's really important. And they're passionate. You know, they really care about what they do. And everyone at the school and everyone around them knows that they're passionate about their position. And they also persevere. So with all the limitations we have, with all of the district and school initiatives and national, you know, standards and things that are coming down, amazing teachers always find a way to do what is best for their students.
Yeah, I think that's great. The part about persevering, like you said, right now with all that teachers are required to do, it's tough. It's easy to burn out. Like you were mentioning earlier, the burnout rate is what, 2-3 years?
Yeah, and I think it's just the hardest time right now for someone to be a beginning teacher. I mean, we've got Common Core. In Hawaii, we're rolling out a whole new evaluation system. There's so many demands coming down. We're coming to the end of Race to the Top here. And just for beginning teachers, I just can't imagine how challenging it is for them right now.
Right. And I think that's why your position is so important now, just to be that support. And I think every new teacher needs to have someone that they can you know, even just vent to.
I definitely agree. That's exactly what we're here for. We're here to support them.
Right.
Yes.
Awesome. Little change of gears before we move on. Do you have a favorite quote that maybe has inspired you as a teacher that maybe new teachers can adopt?
I do. I have so many. The one that's been going around lately that I've seen a lot on Pinterest and Twitter is by Alexander Trenford. It's the best teachers are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see. And I think that just really resonates with what an amazing teacher is. It's someone who's really, really trying to get those students to think, trying to guide those students in the right direction and facilitate whatever project they're working on, but really having the students come up with the answers and the questions and the inquiry.
Very, very true. Very true. It reminds me of what Nick was saying. Nick Provenzano, he talked about the journey, not necessarily the grade.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's awesome. Awesome. Well, like we've spoken earlier, many new teachers and even some veteran teachers struggle with classroom management.
Yes.
This is that one area, like I've always said, new teachers, I don't know. I mean, in college classes, they go over it, talk about all the different philosophies, but still when they get into the classroom, it's like it's all forgotten.
Right.
Yeah. And so what advice would you give to a new teacher who maybe is struggling with classroom management?
Well, and I think this is like the number one issue for not only new teachers, but some veteran teachers, like you said. Rituals and routines are critical. I think that they need to be accessible to all students. For me with a special ed background, I'm always really cognizant of trying to make sure that all students, can follow and understand and be able to, work through rituals and routines that are best. You can have visual rubrics and getting those students involved. So taking a picture of the students when the whole class is quiet and having that picture up on the board. If you have a science lab coming up, you can take a picture of all the equipment that needs to be out for science lab and have that kind of projected so that when the students come in, they have something to do. Auditory signals, something that's going to keep those kids engaged, ways that they can respond. So rituals and routines, I think are pretty critical. Also, classroom rules, but less than 5. And nothing crazy specific, because if those classroom rules are in place and you have a really good discussion about them, you can also tailor those classroom rules and those kind of positive and negative consequences after them. So simple ones like be respectful, but then having a really good discussion with your students about what does that look like to be respectful and what does it feel like and what are some examples of being respectful in your classroom and some non-examples. So again, having your students participate in that and then keeping it simple. And finally, asking those students, to have them participate, but you are not your student's friend. You are their teacher.
That's what new teachers make the biggest mistake right now. They want to be everybody's friend, right?
And I remember you talking about the advice that people give about don't smile until Christmas, and yeah, that's crazy. And the other thing, you can't go back, and they talk about being really, some other kind of misadvice about being really, really, really strict because you can always go back. It is though important, I think, to not befriend them and really remember that you are the one in control of your classroom, and you can still be fair and equitable and have those students involved, but they are not your friend. They are your students. So
yeah, there's a fine line between having a relationship with your students and then being their friend.
Yes.
It's kind of tough to give a consequence to your friend.
Yep.
If they need it. New teachers have a hard time with that, but eventually they get it. They realize that that professional distance between the teacher and the student, it's got to be there. But you can still have that and have a great relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's totally okay to remind beginning teachers too that they're going to make mistakes, that they might interact with a student in a way that, they kind of regret, or there was a mistake that happened and they're going to have to, try to work through it. And that's okay. I mean, veteran teachers do the same thing. So it's
right.
It's a process.
Yeah. I like what you said about respect. We tell the students, you got to show respect and be respectful, and you respect me, I'll respect you. But respect is such a vague term. You talked about giving specific examples of respect, and I think that's what kids need. Just examples. What does respect look like?
Right. And again, if you're able to make those kind of classroom rules or expectations vague, but with the understanding that you've had this really good conversation with your students. Another really good one is do your best work. And then again, having another conversation with your students about what does that look like. So all the way from, messy handwriting or, poor grammar, whatever it is, to have a conversation with your students about is this your best work? Are you doing your best work right now? And that was one of the commitments that we all agreed to, kind of thing. So.
Right. Very good. Very good. So let's say, and you're in this position all the time, but a scenario, you have a new teacher in front of you, and you have time to give him maybe him or her one or two specific tips that they can use tomorrow, what tips would you give a new teacher that they can use tomorrow, and that'll put them on the path to be an amazing teacher?
Okay, let's see. Every staff member on campus is a peer. So specifically the custodians, the cafeteria staff, and especially those people in the office, those people are really critical to your success. They have so much knowledge in most of the areas, especially in school culture. And it's important that beginning teachers treat them as equals. You work with them and they do not work for you. And I think it's really important that we remember that. Kind of goes along with another really important piece of advice that I didn't learn in my teacher prep program was that, a lot of times there are adults in your classroom now. And we don't learn in our higher ed institutions how to work with adults in our classroom. We're really focused on teaching students and parent tutors, education assistants. They're not our students, but they still need direction. And you have to build, an equal and trusting relationship with them, because they are also going to be the key to your success, as well as your sanity throughout the day. So
you got that right. It's you need that support. Even you never know when you need a custodian, and you never know when you need the receptionist in the office.
Exactly.
And building relationships with them is so key. You'd hate to have them as your enemy.
It could really make or break your school year. I have to say, I've seen too many beginning teachers kind of come in saying, I have the degree, I have the expertise, I'm the one, getting this paycheck and I'm doing all of this work, and not having those respectful relationships with the custodians or, the people in the office are the ones that are, going to be able to get that paper to your administrator sooner than later. If you don't have those respectful and positive relationships with them, it could really, really hurt you in the long run.
Right. Very good. Tell me about the you mentioned greeting your students at the door.
Yeah.
How important is that?
I think that's one thing, too, that beginning teachers could do tomorrow. They could start tomorrow by doing. I think, we talk a lot about formative assessment. And when we mentor our beginning teachers, we're always using formative assessment tools to help them kind of look at the data, look at things that are happening that are positive and things that they need to work on in their classroom. One of the things that beginning teachers can do tomorrow is be at that door when the bell rings and the students are ready to come into class and greeting every single one of them. That might be the only one-on-one face-to-face interaction you have with that student for the day. And it's another great way to formatively assess and just get a really quick snapshot of where each of your students are, like how you think they're going to start that day. You've got a lot of kids who you constantly struggle with on a day-to-day basis. You can do a check right there and see what their mood is like. Great way to get to know your kids with some special handshakes or silly high fives. And I think that's something that we do learn. That's a really good tip that's out there a lot. But I like to add to that by being there on the way out at the end of the day as well, because there's some really quick comments and just some, really easy words of support and positive praise that you can give a student on their way out to remind them, what they did that day or how impressed you were with them having turned their homework in on time or whatever it is to make that personal connection. Then it's amazing what those just few seconds at the beginning and end of the day can do for your classroom.
Very true. And, that might be the only positive word they get all day.
Exactly.
Your good job on the way out or your high five. That might be the only high five they get from an adult all day. And you don't know how much, for some kids, how valuable that is.
That's so true. Yeah.
How important it is.
Yeah. And I mean, for many students, school is the safest place for them. And just to know that they've got a teacher who just took the time to give them that high five, like you said, it's very valuable.
Mm-hmm. Again, making connections. You might be the only adult with that positive connection, and they'll want to come to your class. They'll want to not be late because they know that they're gonna have a good time in your class. They're gonna be accepted in your class, and I think that's where teachers can make the greatest difference. Maybe not necessarily with education, not necessarily with curriculum, but you have that connection with a kid that's going to last a lifetime. They're going to remember you because of the positive impact you had on their lives.
That is so true.
I think that's
so true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is there anything else, maybe last words of wisdom that you can share with us before we say goodbye, Danielle?
Yeah. Especially for beginning teachers, another thing that I think is really important is really understanding your school culture. And Dr. Anthony Muhammad has written some books on transforming school culture, and we use them with our beginning teachers all the time. It's really interesting to kind of see the different roles that certain teachers at your school play, and to understand that there are roles that are there. There are some of the believers that most of the beginning teachers fall into, where they're ready to conquer the world. They're going to get every student to read at grade level. They're going to make leaps and bounds, and they're just ready to move on. And then there's kind of, the tweeners who go back and forth, and they're kind of trying to feel their way around, and they're going to kind of wait and see what's going on. And then you've got those fundamentalists, and those are the ones that we work with the beginning teachers on, making sure that they can identify them and kind of decide how they're going to work with those teachers, because they're the ones who, they're actively seeking out kind of new teachers to kind of side with them in they're happy with the status quo. They're against any kind of change. They would rather be left alone, and they can be very successful without proper leadership at the school, and that's also can be a really big challenge for beginning teachers. On the other hand, though, there are just as many amazing teachers that we want to encourage the beginning teachers to seek out and latch onto and learn from.
Very true. Awesome. Technology.
Yes, technology. Technology is so great, and I think especially for beginning teachers in Hawaii. I don't know if it's similar in other places in the country, but we are finding a lot of beginning teachers are not necessarily first career anymore. So I end up mentoring about half of the beginning teachers that I work with are in their second career, and they're in their first years of teaching, but it's their second career. So those beginning teachers that are in their first career and are very young and just coming out, they've really connected with technology. They don't know anything other than technology, and those are the easy beginning teachers to encourage to use technology for professional learning networks, for resources. Twitter is, not only a form of social media to follow celebrities, but it is an amazing tool for getting resources and making connections with other teachers of like minds. And Pinterest is another really, really great website. There's so many, I can't even, can't name them all, but.
Tell me about Pinterest, because that's something that I throw up some images up there, but really I haven't seen it as a way for, as far as a benefit for teachers in the classroom. How does that work?
Okay, so I did visit your Pinterest page, and your Pinterest page is great because it's all you. So I can grab, I can grab and repin things for beginning teachers, which is great. But Pinterest it's kind of an online pin board, and what you can do is you can search, and then when you can put in a simple search like 6th grade writing Common Core, and a whole bunch of lesson plans, a whole bunch of teachers, a whole bunch of ideas will pop up. You can look through them. Often they connect to free links that you can then, kind of borrow or modify or use as a springboard to a lesson plan that you need enhancing. And it's just really great. So I have several boards, but I do have a teacher board. And especially for beginning teachers, I'm able to, like when parent-teacher conferences are coming up, I can go back to my teacher board and look up all the parent-teacher conference resources I have, questions that they can ask, graphic organizers that they can use, like strategies on how to schedule your parent-teacher conferences, put the challenging parent in the middle because you have another conference after. It's just full of resources, ideas, printables, lesson plans, worksheets, graphics, fonts, clip art. It's amazing. And it's free.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so much I don't know. That's amazing. So there's another good takeaway, new teachers. Pinterest.
Yeah, there's also
go find yourself a board.
I think there's an education one called Learnist, which is also really great, and I think that's geared toward educators. It's not as popular as Pinterest, but again, many online tools that beginning teachers can be using.
Wow. Well, that's good. It's good to know. Good to know. It's like a search engine.
It is, yeah. And then you can compile everything onto like a board. You can kind of pin it to your board, and then you can refer to it anytime you want.
All right. So you have a Pinterest education board?
I do. If you just search my name, Danielle Mizuta, I'll pop up, and you can follow my teacher board. I think it's called Teacher Stuff. And yeah. Have at it. Just set aside several hours because you can get lost in all of the resources that are available.
Well, we'll make sure to add that onto the webpage so that they can link directly to your board.
Okay, great.
Very cool. Yeah. Very, very cool. So, speaking about connecting with you, where can teachers find you if they have any questions or they just want to thank you for all your great insight?
The best way to find me right now is on Twitter. So you can just search my name on Twitter, or my name is at Kohola, the number 11. So that's at KOHOLA 11. That's the best way to find me right now. Our office is fairly new, so we're kind of working on a website. And one of my personal goals and my professional goals is to kind of start up a blog. You've definitely inspired me in that area.
Awesome.
As well as the other amazing teachers that you've had on your podcast. I mean, just a wealth of information. So that's my next step. But right now you can find me on Twitter. I'm also on Pinterest, like I said, and I'm also on LinkedIn.
Awesome. So we will have links to all those sites onto the webpage, and that way our listeners can find you and say thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Before we go, Danielle?
I mean, I think it's just so great to be a teacher. I think if you really are passionate about your job, all the challenges that come with beginning teacher, will eventually work their way out, and you will be able to really remember why you got into teaching. That first year is really, really challenging. Beginning teachers go through these phases. That Ellen Moyer, who's the CEO of the New Teacher Center, has kind of written about, and they start out with this great anticipation, and then, a couple months in, they're kind of in survival phase, and they get down to right about where we are now in November, where they're just really disillusioned. They've got report cards and parent-teacher conferences, and they're trying to just decide, like, is this for me? Is this what I wanted to do? Am I cut out for this? They're getting physically sick, but hang in there. The holidays are coming. You're going to have a great break, and you're going to have time to just rejuvenate and then reflect. And with the proper support, hopefully you have a mentor that is working with you, and you've set up some good classroom management strategies. And it's okay if you make a mistake. It's going to get better. Be honest and be yourself. And it's the best profession that there is.
It is. It really is. And like you say, it's tough that first year, but it gets easier, it gets better, and it is amazing. It's an amazing profession. Well, Danielle, it's been a pleasure getting to meet you, and I look forward to the day when we can drop by in Hawaii over there and and maybe meet in person. That'd be great.
You are welcome anytime. Yes. And all of your listeners, we're happy to have you here. So, shoot us an email or tweet me and we'll definitely try to connect. We're always happy to meet new people. And most people are always happy to come visit. So
yeah. It's like I was telling you earlier, it's on my to-do list. My wife and I were going to take a trip over there someday.
Sounds
so maybe
sounds good.
We'll catch up over there. So to the listeners, I know you received a lot of great information in this episode. Now it's up to you to take it back to your classroom and implement what you learned today. So until next time,
be amazing.
The Amazing Teacher Podcast is brought to you by SuccessInTheClassroom.com. Learn more about being an amazing teacher by visiting SuccessInTheClassroom.com or TheAmazingTeacher.com.